Thank you for joining me. This is the Elizabeth Farah Show, and it is our America First immigration. And by the way, I would say higher America First episodes, because this show, we want to bring to you the American people, MAGA, America First, Republicans, everybody out there, even if you're a liberal, if you care about America's economy, about our blue-collar and our white-collar workers being replaced by foreigners, by our economy being tanked because so much of our capital is going overseas. If any of these things bother you, and by the way, let me also introduce culture, identity, and the fact that mass immigration is a tremendous problem to any country that allows that to happen. So that's what this America First Immigration Show is. And of course, I have with me the beautiful, fabulous, brilliant reporter, WorldNetDaily's investigative reporter, Amanda Bartolotta. I call her Amanda Louise just because her grandmother does. And we are going to be talking about a really important story today. Its title is U.S. Pension Funds Used to Fuel India's Rise and America's Fall, State by State, How U.S. Leaders Sold Your Retirement to a Foreign Power. So that's on WorldNetDaily right now, along with two other stories on the front page in a special block that we devote just to the subject. So go there and read this story in full. We can only say so much. I'm going to just give you basically the introduction. It's a high priority story. It's a can't miss article. And what Amanda has done is broken down one of the greatest betrayals facing America's workers and retirees. So your state pension dollars, billions of them, are being funneled into India to fund its rise as a global power, to build its middle class as our middle class is shrinking, and the disparity between the wealthiest and the middle class, I would say, is growing, and growing. Unemployment is not 4.2% or whatever they're saying. So this is the beginning of the story. U.S. pensions are being used as a tool of foreign development policy without public approval. So, Amanda, you're just going to have to jump right in because this is a big story, and I want to hear straight from the author, the investigator.
Yeah, one of the things that, I come across about these H-1B issues is that, for those that either don't care or don't know, they don't feel impacted, so they don't feel like getting involved. And so what this kind of does is it brings, the impact across the U.S. to where now we all should care, because this isn't just, people losing their jobs who won't have a retirement in the future. This has to do with the people that are getting ready to retire, or the people that are investing in their future retirement, or have children getting ready to go to college, and to realize that, this money is being funneled into a foreign government that not only does not benefit us in any way, but that it's not being openly disclosed. And, lastly, it's the same very businesses that are getting invested in that our jobs are being offshored to. So we're fueling more offshoring in the future, and it's all being done through our pension funds that we're paying.
Let's zero in on a statement. Occasionally, we want to know what the simplest explanation of the story is. It's multifaceted, but in lots of details. But I think what you just said rings my bell, and that is that Americans' pension funds are being used to invest in Indian tech and other, it's just not just tech, and other multinational corporations that are American often corporations, offshoring to India. And those are the very jobs that are taking jobs out of America's ecosystem, off our shores, but also even probably on the interior, hiring H-1B and OPT visa holders, still replacing Americans in the workplace. So we are funding the very American and Indian companies that are bringing about the demise of the middle class, white collar, and they're actually even moving into blue collar, but we won't go there. White collar, middle class Americans. Is that what it is?
It's exactly what it is. And, their goals are to expand. They want to be the manufacturing hub. They want to be the global talent hub. They want to be the global tech hub. And the only way that they do that is by these investments. And so these investments have been very important to India. Modi has spent a lot of their money on investing on selling out the India stock market to gain more foreign direct investments or foreign portfolio investments into India. So the fact that this whole U.S. Diplomatic mission to India to try to get more business into India, I think it was 1.8 trillion more of U.S. assets.
That's what their goal is?
Well, the goal is, to the moon and back, but that's where the pension fund opportunity lies, is that it creates a, $1.8 trillion opportunity through our pensions.
Okay, so the entirety of the pensions is 1.8 or 1.2 trillion.
1.8 trillion.
1.8 trillion. And right now, how much does India have?
50 billion.
50 billion. And that's been growing. In pension funds.
Alone.
And, well, we'll get into more details. I want to read a quote to you. I just posted on X just a clip of our ambassador to India. His name is Eric Garcetti, and this is just one line of the quote. If you want to see the future, come to India. Well, and then he goes, if you want to feel the future, come to India. If you want to work on the future, come to India. This is a siren song. This is an India file, right? There's always a problem. Great Britain had it, and some Westerns where they would become Orientalists, or they were such lovers of the Arab culture, and so they became Arab files, if you will. And they made all their decisions not based on what was best for the UK or Great Britain at the time, or their responsibilities to Israel. They made all of their choices and decisions based upon their passionate love for the culture of the Arab Muslim culture. Fine. We see how that went for them. Here we have Eric Garcetti, the U.S. ambassador to India, who's been there since 2023. Why does this bother me? Because obviously he was a Biden appointee. And for anyone who doesn't know this, he's the former mayor of Los Angeles. And I think, what I got out of it is that he left his mayorship to go to India as the appointee, as the ambassador. What is the problem with that? We know what Los Angeles is like. This is a man who's a Biden supporter, a Harris supporter, an entrenched Democrat, partisan, and mayor of probably one of the most corrupt cities. Well, I don't know if you would call it that, but clearly a compromised city. They certainly are not America First or MAGA. And he still, today, has not been replaced. I don't even think I've seen any talk about appointing a successor to him. My problem is this. I'm wondering if Modi or his Minister of External Affairs, Jayantra, it's hard for me to pronounce his name, asked the Trump administration to keep him in the State Department. Just throwing that up. Just asking. Okay, so let's continue on. He says, if you want to see the future, if you want to work on the future, come to India. And then the U.S. Consul General in India is Mike Hankey, that you quote here. He says, it is going to deliver good returns, rather, for hardworking Americans. At the same time, it's going to enable and accelerate what India is doing as it grows and as its stature in the world grows. Can you tell me something? What is the motivation behind that kind of a statement?
Well, and it's worse, like to paint investing into another country as being, good for working Americans, especially when those investments are going into the very, companies that are taking away those jobs from those working Americans. It's just such an insult. But again, like we're in that conversation of, empowering another country whose ambitions are to become global dominators over the West. Does that benefit America? It doesn't. And his statements, just add to that he's very much aware that that is what India's ambitions are and that they're already on route. So why not just continue to fuel it? And, you got Garcetti, who later, is bringing in the China factor of, people are pulling out of China. So what better, country to reinvest in than a other emerging economy like India, who's already number one of all emerging economies that are being invested in at this point. And so he paints that picture, and we've just heard that comment so many times in so much of my research that if you want to beat China, if you want to, not invest in China, then go to India. And it's like, what are we actually doing? Are we trying to benefit America, or are we trying to benefit India? And are we just creating a China 2.0, which is something that we've talked a little bit about as well?
Seems to me that history shows us that we went to China with all the same arguments, even though it was a communist country, even though its history, this tragic history of mass slaughter of minorities and even its just Chinese citizens, starvations, concentration camps, slavery, forced labor, whatever, that the history of that country is an abomination in memory. And still, yet we were told we have to invest in China because we have to counter the Soviet Union because of the Cold War. So this narrative builds up. It's the narrative, it's disinformation. And I guess sometimes it's clueless politicians that have no sense of history or think that everybody's just out there playing patty cake and we just have to, if we speak nicely and say nice things and be kind, then that's really going to satisfy them. And they're laughing at us. That would be my bottom line. So we fueled China, built them into the global industrial giant that they are today. An interview that I just did last week with Grant Newsham, when I asked him, where would China be today if we had not invested their rise? He said they'd probably look like Uruguay. Uruguay. Most Americans don't even know where Uruguay is. I certainly don't know what the GDP is or their industry. Uruguay. But I asked him, are you serious? And he said, yes. We literally built that economy and built them into a military superpower. They used our capital to do it. In our last show, you mentioned, and I was really shocked by it, that a dollar figure of $50 trillion. What did that represent?
That represented the loss of salaries and compensation and benefits that Americans should have been making as inflation continued, as job growth continued. But instead, because there's been so much offshoring and onshoring and other ways to really harm the compensation of our employees, that has impacted how much money that we should be making. So we've lost $50 trillion as a working class because of all these other programs going on, for us for making what we should have been making.
I would rather have more expensive products, but have all of my neighbors employed in really solid, long-term blue-collar and white-collar jobs where there was job security and where there were well-paying salaries and benefits, and we could afford to pay more for our toasters, then, right? I mean, if my neighbor's got a great job and I have to buy his toaster and it's more expensive in America, I'd rather have that combination than he's out of work or he's working at Walmart as a greeter and his job just went to communist China, but I got a toaster for $19. That's my value. So I should have said this faster, but we funded China because we needed to counter the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Tech or manufacturing bought that. They left. We lost $50 trillion in one category alone, labor costs. And now all of the politicians out there, I think it's practically everyone, maybe Grassley and a couple, are saying that we have to fund India to counter China, which we funded to counter the Soviet Union.
Well, and, we've talked a little bit about spending, we'd be willing to spend more if manufacturing was done in the U.S. because of jobs. But ultimately, the way that I've done this research and so much of that I've dug in to, it's that they're not just marketing this cheaper labor. They're marketing an opportunity to have that mass population that as you invest in it and they grow their GDP and they grow their economics and their value and employed Indians, that you have triple the amount of population in India than you do in the U.S. And so if they switch all their investments into India and they build up India in, by 2030, sometimes this is the number I see, you're going to have a better America as far as you're going to have more people that are going to buy your products in India. You're going to have all your, but still cheap manufacturing and cheap labor because of, it's never going to quite be what the GDP of America, but you're going to have a lot more people buying in India. So invest in India because that's where the money of the future.
Okay, I wasn't following you there. What you're saying is that the pension funds and those who are calling for investment in India are saying that the middle class is growing in India.
Yes.
The wealth of and there's still a completely impoverished third world nation, but the middle class is growing because we're funding it by bringing people over here, educating them, putting them in job experience through OPT, giving them their first jobs while Americans are waiting, standing on the curb. And then many of them do go back to India, or they're just sending their money back to India, fueling the middle class there. And now what you're saying, part of the pitch is, well, this is a great market for Americans to sell to. And if we have our factories there, it's a shorter supply chain, and this is all just working out beautifully. We made China's middle class too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now we're making India's, and it's pretty crazy the manipulation that is taking place in order to do that. And it's amazing that here we did that with China. We recognize that that's what we did to China, and we're repeating it. But we're told not to think about it in a way that India's just partner. They want for everyone. But then you read their minister Jay Shankar's book, The India Way, and that is not the India way. The India way is not everybody. It is India only. India first, and they will do anything that it takes in order to make India number one, which is completely anti-West, for one. But for two, it's like we're being, told one thing by Modi and by the India, representatives and everybody
public relations.
And everything that's pushing the India narratives that India is for everyone, that they're for the globe. But you can't read that India Way book and not see it any other way. This is a war that is being fought by handshake and not by bullets. That's what it comes down to.
That's well put. And this Jai Shankar, I've been watching him for a while because he's very westernized. He speaks very good English. He's very Western. Did you say he's Muslim?
Yes.
Okay. So he's Muslim, which is a little different. But he's looked at like a superstar in India. Just a real superstar. He is probably the most important minister in all of government in India. And that book, I hadn't read that book. I'm probably going to get it today. Another book I have to read. He says, quote, "The weaker player solicits or manipulates stronger forces to its advantage." Tell me your interpretation. You've read part of the book. Tell me what you think.
I'm working my way through. It's really hard to really digest knowing what I know. And from all my investigative work and the manipulation and strategies of the India government, it just puts things in so much of a darker turn for me when I read this book. And really what I'm reading that as, and what all the strategies that I've seen and all the, schemes that they've created in order to make India number one, what that means is exactly what you think it means. It means that America, being the stronger force, must be manipulated and taken advantage of in order for India's rise.
You said here, Jankar's doctrine rejects traditional partnerships, exploits global rivalries. And this is what we're seeing here. China, it's beautiful because I think India is exploiting China. Of course, China is very wily, so they know they're being exploited and they're doing their dance. But they're both exploiting America, but especially India. India is brilliant at this. Jankar's doctrine rejects traditional partnerships, exploits global rivalries, i.e., America and China, and treats the West not as a friend, but as a tool for India's advancement. As U.S. pension dollars pour into India, American retirees are being forced to bankroll a foreign government that sees them not as allies, but as a means to its own rise. Beautifully put.
I'm glad that came, as much as I put into those words, what it really means of what is happening. And that's not just from this investigation alone. This is from 2 years of research and investigation and seeing all these schemes and, code words and abbreviations and plans. And that, text out of the article really just encompasses exactly what it means. It's interpreted so that Americans can truly understand. They're not a friend. India is not a friend. And you can't despise them or hate them for what they're doing because, what country doesn't want their growth to be number one? Who doesn't want to not be a third world country? You can't be mad about that, but I can be angry the way that they're doing it. And I can be upset that it's taken advantage of our kind, culture. That, we're wanting to legitimately make peace with the world. We don't want necessarily war. And we want to help other countries. Look at all the USAID that has gone into India and all the other countries. We're giving, culture, but to take advantage of that. And
okay, we have to, I think the way we look at it is, I want to riff off of that just a minute. We understand that India places India first, China first, Russia first, Iran first. Fine. But number one, the moment that Americans actually think that China, Iran, India, Russia, or any of our allies are doing something for our best interest, we've lost the plot. And when it's China, we are offended because of espionage, the theft of IP, because they're a communist nation that is a brutal, brutal destroyer of lives and cultures. And it's a monster. Russia is another story. Iran is another story. I could yell about them. But just because India puts a smile on their face and calls themselves the world's largest democracy, they were communist not too long ago, doesn't mean that they're not competing with us in a manipulative, I would say sinister because it's sinister what their ultimate goal would mean to America and Americans. And they're doing it with our politicians and our tech industry and all industries. Let's keep remembering, I keep thinking always, tech industry. It's insurance. It's automotive. I mean, literally every industry uses tech, databases, AI, robot. I mean, it's all encompassing, tech is. And so we should respect that they're going to try to cheat us, manipulate us, outdo us, lie to us. They are lying to even our government. They are lying and manipulating and cheating us. Okay, that's fine. We understand. You're a government. You're going to go ahead and do that. But then we have to be, again, one, smart, but two, say, that's not okay. You're not a buddy. You are a hardcore competitor. We're in the ring. We're doing MMA, and I'm going to fight to win. And instead, we're saying, oh, India, it's so good to fight with you today. This is all just for show, right?
Money helps. We're good. We don't need to be number one anymore. Brown has been way too heavy for so long.
This is America First era. If this is the golden age of America, it's not the age of Asia. It's one or the other. And we are fighting. Garcetti, we need to all be watching. And this, giant, every time I think I've got his name permanently in my brain, Jai Shankar. I'm close. But anyway, as I said, I've been following him, but I really hadn't been paying much attention to our ambassador to India. He's clearly compromised. And
a lot of them have been over the years. I've seen a lot of documents that talk about the, how close they get, very close with our ambassadors. They host very nice dinners and parties and all these events, which partially USAID pays for, to make sure that they wine and dine these guys and get them in.
Excuse me, you were telling me that, was it Hankey or Garcetti that was doing some tour with Indian companies? Was it in India or was it in America?
Yeah, Mike Hankey, he was leading this tour, the Finance Futures Tour, so financing India's future tour, and that there was representatives across the 50 states that would be there that represent all of the pension, the 1.8 trillion in pension potential to invest in India. And so the whole goal was to expose them to the various India states and India, representatives, and showcase that, what India has for you to invest in and why it would be a good return. And so far, there has been ups and downs and some, profits out of this. But at the same time, as they've been scouring this, these plans to invest in the stock market in India and getting all of these billions of dollars invested in them, it's been skyrocketing in scams and fraud, embezzlement.
Let me sum up this part about, about Hankey and Garcetti. He's a consul general in Mumbai. This is Mike Hankey. He assumed the role in August 2022. So he is a Biden man. And he's a career senior service officer since 2001. Now, he was a journalist. He's fluent in Arabic, French, and Tamil. Tamil, of course, is a dialect in India or a language in India. But he had degrees from George Washington University, a bachelor's in international affairs and journalism, and Indiana University, master's in second language education. But he's an international affairs guy. He's been around for 25 years, 24 years, and he's completely sold out to India. I don't know where he is on Saudi Arabia, Egypt, but he sold Yemen. He was also in Yemen and Nigeria. We need to bring this man home, give him a gold watch, and send him on his way. President Trump needs to appoint, or Secretary of State Marco Rubio needs to appoint a new U.S. Consul General.
Let me have about 20 minutes with that person before we send them.
With Secretary of State Rubio or whoever's making the decision?
Whoever they want to nominate for that position. Give me 20 minutes.
Oh, that's all I see. Okay, so we'll have you appointed or put on a board to vet. I'm with you on that.
Please. Well, not even to vet. I will make sure that they are, very aware of, the traps that they might fall into.
Yeah, there's this love of the culture. And then also when you become very close friends with the leaders there, you can't help. It is human nature. You can't be in an adversarial stance constantly at odds in your mind with whomever you're working with. So these people should not stay long. The moment, they should be told, the moment you start feeling like hearts and flowers and having tea and biscuits with your buddies, call us. We'll put you someplace else, and you'll be happy for it. And
I think art. Yeah.
Well, I want you to talk about something that's very, very disturbing that could put our pension funds in jeopardy, and that is the tremendous corruption in India and how there are very lax controls. Give us a rundown on that.
Well, and that's what's interesting. Like, why are we investing in a country that has remained on our watch list for IP theft and fraud and, trade secret selling? Like, that's already number one. But number two, all the research and investigations that I've done, it's like every time that you look into a neutral party review of India's business practices, it's like you see this skyrocket of fraud. And part of that is because they have lax criminal laws. Like, they don't have a justice system that, for one, is going to really hold people accountable. But two, you can buy off the judge to get out of time, which, I mean, that's crazy already. But with the stock market scenario being so new, and you're giving, third world country people, so you're giving way more access to technology across the board from people who've, primarily been in poverty. Now you're giving them access to digital era, and there's not enough security in place. And so what they're seeing is like 400 plus stock fraud complaints daily in India in 2024, daily.
I'm sorry. Repeat that for all of us.
So India reports in India, so they're not telling everybody who's on this tour in 2024 this, but daily in 2024, India was getting 400 plus complaints a day on stock fraud complaints.
I have no idea how that compares to the United States or any other country. But India is legendary, just like, African countries, different African countries, on with its, payola, corruption. Every single thing that you do in India requires a bribe. It's so expected that it's part of the culture. It's that endemic to the culture. And what I noticed is when you're thinking, and this is from experience, this is not a predetermined mentality. I don't even know where I would get this. Of when a scam is happening, you're thinking India is very high on the list not because I made that up in my brain. I wouldn't even know, I wouldn't have known, would I say that about French people or Australians?
You're thinking of the call center scams. That's like anybody, if you say call center, the first thing you think of is, was it in India? And there's a reason. A lot of our, call center scams have been tied to India. We've had over 10 million in one instance stolen from Americans, primarily targeting elderly and their life savings from call center scams in India. And, part of that is probably related to the fact that all of our PII is in India. We had a major leak of all of our Social Security numbers, all of our PII data to the black web through India. And yet here we are, we're going to invest in them, and we're going to...
I'm going to go here. This is not in Amanda's article, of course, because she's not going to clutter it up with backgrounders. Those are for, links. India is listed on the United States Trade Representative's Special 301 Report Priority Watch List. That's a long title. So it's the United States Trade Representative's Special 301 Report Priority Watch List. I guess, could we just call that the 301 Watch List or the Priority Watch List for 2025? Why isn't this being talked about, Amanda Louise Bartolotta, which evaluates intellectual property protection? So it's our IP. What has been our 30, 40 year, I don't know how long it goes back, charge against China? IP theft. And we're just slipping right into an up and coming, well, it's actually very established and entrenched, but we're fueling the economy for a new wave of IP theft. So the federal government is actually stating that intellectual property theft this is a major issue with India. It identifies India as one of the most challenging major economies for IP protection due to issues like inadequate enforcement, high levels of online piracy, trademark opposition backlogs, and insufficient legal protections for trade secrets, patent concerns, including potential revocations and restrictive patentability criteria under the Indian Patents Act also impact various sectors. We've talked about this. What that just meant, correct me if I'm wrong, the second section, after all these, the inadequacy of their governance, their structure, their constitutional or legal structure is what they were referring to. Inadequate enforcement, protections for trade secrets, online piracy, trademark opposition backlogs. All of this is insufficient legal protections. But then it goes on to say patent concerns, including potential revocations. Amanda Louise, go.
Yeah, that's very tied to some of their schemes where they're using overseas Indians through a couple of their programs. And there's an article that will be released about this very shortly, where they are expecting as a trade of benefit for anybody that is of Indian origin. So you don't have to be an Indian citizen. You could be a first, second, or third generation Indian.
Indian adjacent.
Indian adjacent. They even consider Kamala as part of the group, but they require a couple of things. So you do it through remittance to be a part of the club. So send that remittance. There's a good reason why they got $123 billion from the world, and says you could do knowledge transfers, and that's you get into that realm of IP theft, and that does go on to say technology transfers, which is that trade secrets, IP theft realm.
But we were talking the other day, I'm sorry to interrupt, because we're going to do a whole episode on this part of the story. And I forgot that that's the story you were working on today when we were on the phone.
Yes. And
when I said potential revocations, I want you to drill down on the contracts and memos of understanding signed between big tech companies, starting with Microsoft, because it is the nexus or the font of all evil when it comes to tech. Bill Gates, years ago, they signed memos of understanding with the Indian government, or I guess perhaps India companies, and there is something in their legal code that, of their patent code, that would allow, and these contracts, these memos, allow, if the American company wants to pull out of India,
or if they're sued by the U.S. government under I think it was the 1952 or 1962 Act of Trade Act. It might be 1952 Trade Act, but that allowed technology and services data would be included in it, despite the fact that it was originally intended on goods, but services are considered goods. That if they were sued and the U.S. government won on that Trade Act, they would have the authority, no matter whether or not that American company wanted it to happen or not, to pull everything out of that foreign country. And India has built this mechanism around IP laws.
So America would have the right in certain circumstances, because of a lawsuit or some action taken, to demand that the company pull out of India. Is that what you just said?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So on that eventuality or that possibility, India has in place. By the way, they're following in China's the same path. China. They look to China for models to replicate. They're really, kissing cousins. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that. So you get to the point where if America says, no, you're pulling out of India because, now what can India do because of their legislation and their memos of understanding?
Well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to develop their own IP laws, and America's recognizing that in the Trade Bureau. That's why it's written in there that the revocation, they're trying to establish a blocker through their own IP laws, so their own country laws, so that the U.S. can't take everything back.
So India wants to own the tech
and our data.
And I'm not sure how expansive. I don't know that. I don't know that either one of us would know that, but they want to hold, they consider it theirs. It's partly ours. You're here on our soil. And if you come here on our soil, you're not leaving with everything you came with and built here. We're going to keep some of it. And that's
so key to what they believe will lead to their global future. And, we've talked about the immigration industrial complex, but that when you said that and you coined it that, it made perfect sense because India often uses the fourth industrial complex and the fifth industrial complex as theirs, and they're, rising, where the fourth industrial complex represents AI and technology, and the fifth is who owns that technology. And so they believe their time to be the global dominating, leaders of the world is in that fifth industrial complex, which they want to lead. But in order to do that, they need our technology. They need to be the winners in
our
AI.
capital.
In our capital, yeah.
They want us to build data centers, to build infrastructure there, AI. We already employ literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Indians in India. For every one Indian, that's a job in America.
And everything that I've seen with all these, schemes and like where this journey began, century, like it feels like, so long ago now, it was only 20 years ago that this plan really kind of started. What they realize is that they want to be like China. They want to, not miss the bus of, all of that funding and investments and everybody looking to China. They wanted to be China, but they had no manufacturing. they didn't have skilled laborers. And they recognize that all the way up to even, 2024, they still don't have skilled workers. They just, manipulate everybody.
Their education system is abysmal. And I've had people comment to me when on X, when, because our job is to educate Americans on this very complex, very urgent issue. And so I want to engage on X with everybody. So go to my X, @ElizabethFarah. Pretty simple. Of course, Amanda Louise I just searched ALB because it's Amanda Louise Bartolotta, and then that should come up. But it's Amanda Louise what?
416.
416. And that usually goes down here someplace at the bottom. And go to @WorldNetDaily because Amanda is putting her work on WorldNetDaily first. That's where you're going to find it. And we're also developing an email to come out at least weekly outside of our other regular news alerts at WorldNetDaily. So go to WorldNetDaily and sign up. You need to put that link, and I'll put that link in our X accounts as well. Because if you go there and sign up for her newsletter, what we're going to be doing is bringing things together every week, at least one a week. That's what we're going to shoot for right now. I just wanted to point out that I believe that probably 5% of Congress knows that India is on the 301 report, which indicates a very, very inadequate enforcement and high levels of piracy, scamming, stealing, and that this is what these ambassadors and governors, and let's go back to that story, and then you're going to have to read the rest of it, right? Everybody go to WorldNetDaily, read the story there, and tell everybody about it. Share it, please, for us on X. How to sum this up? You will or talk more about where the money goes and some of the most recent scandalous examples, or one example can you give us of corruption in the stock market?
Yeah, which, we were just talking about, we got off on a tangent, but it really kind of ties back. What we are feeling, what we're, investing in is, India's rise to global power, to displace America and become the central of all these investments. And while they're saying that they're building all these rules and laws and it's safe, and we have our ambassadors that are saying that you can now invest in India and it's there's no risk, when every day they're getting 400 complaints in the stock per day. And what they're seeing is that these Indian nationals are getting so high tech that you could, for example, I found one where they created a complete replica of Tesla's website. And you could invest in Tesla from their website, but it was actually a scam website. But it was so high tech, it looked just like Tesla's website. In other examples, and this one was very, very recently, there was an entire investment scam, and I guarantee some of our money was part of this, where they were, this big operation, and the next day, and I think this was just in March, or even it was May, the next day, the whole operation was gone. The chairs, the desks, the laptops, poof, gone. Like nothing there.
How much was invested?
Hundreds of millions is from what my understanding is. And they've got so many different scams going on. They said, based off of their own statements, they have 2% of people who are actually registered to, bring in investments. So they're people who, have signed agreements and are abiding by the laws, that it's not going to be unfair, marketing, that it's going to be legitimate. Only 2% are registered, versus they're, finding about 63% are not even, acknowledging that there's conflict of interest in what they're selling for the investment market.
Sounds like Nancy Pelosi.
So many scams in their stock market.
Yeah, and I see here that the SEC charged Indian billionaire Gautam Adani